Team Talk. I'm delighted to have Veronica with us this morning. Uh, she is an architect based in Leighton Buzzard, and also an interior designer. And one of the things that you do is you apply neuro architecture.
Yes, correct.
So first of all, welcome, Veronique.
Thank you
Lovely
for
to
having
have
me.
you on Team Talk. Let's start with there because I'm guessing a lot of people don't know what neuroarchitecture even is.
Yes, I do have that question a lot. What is neuroarchitecture? What is this? So it is the neuroscience and architecture uh, blended together to understand the impact of the physical environment on the brain, but also on the nervous system, the chemistry of behavior, and how the brain wave works in a space. So it's all of that cognitive senses are all high on alert in a space, and how a space can have a positive impact or a negative impact on the person. In a nutshell.
Fantastic. Exactly. And that is exactly why I've invited Veronique on today, because we want to talk about just how much your environment impacts your performance
That's
at
right.
work or at home. So if anyone was wondering why have I got an architect coming on here talking about teams and leadership and development, because you've got a real diverse perspective to share based on that experience. Just how important is your environment to enable you to be like the kind of best version of yourself, if you like?
It
We'll
is
start there.
so important, basically. It is really important because so wherever you're going to work, first of all, you probably spend most of your time working. So you are most of the time in an office
Yeah,
environment more than in your home, unless you work from home. And again, you've got that boundary. Where do you find the I work from home and now I'm trying to relax in my own home? Where is that boundary? It's kind of merging together. So it's hard to have that split.
indeed. Yeah,
So how we've created our working space have a huge impact on ourselves, but also on the teams, how we are efficient or not efficient, and how we feel in a team as well. As a huge um, basic example, I'd say that most of the architecture post-war, everything was about building and rebuilding offices
yeah,
so that we can build back Britain post-war. And we went for all the concrete and less colours and most of the glass, and everything needed to be efficient to rebuild quicker. And then we put loads of big offices all together, and everything is about working really hard. But we ended up with a lot of concrete space, lack of natural light sometimes. Now we're bringing this back in. Lots of empty space, white space. Everything is a bit like a big void, and you're going into the office, and it feels a bit like a big void, and you're kind of missing that as a human being more and more.
yeah. So it's really efficient, maybe to build and construct, but in
So
terms of the mood,
whilst we were trying to be more efficient with the space and the architecture and getting the people to be more efficient, it kind of goes more into this other way around, where in a space where you feel a bit that void and the lack of inspiration, then you will be less efficient at the end of the day. If
yeah,
that kind of start making sense. But
absolutely. Because people want their teams to feel great and inspired,
yes,
don't
yeah,
they?
it's not just about productivity, it's also about the well-being, because if you can't have your team members feeling good within an office, at some point they will leave. So you have less retention in your employees. You'll have more movement. And it's not
Yeah,
just about having a good design. Yes, it's nice, but it's rethinking the space properly so that they feel good, not just about adding a pretty color. It's really trying to find the right, like, what is the issue of this space and trying to rethink it. So it's kind of analyzing a space and having a critical point of view and putting the finger what is the negative impact on might have what the space might have as an sorry, has a negative impact on the team.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll get there. And trying to find solutions so that there would be a good impact in the space where they'll feel good about themselves. So it
What
really,
advice would you give, I don't know, a leader or an office manager who's got a space?
hmm,
How can they kind of work out what's good, bad about it? I mean,
I don't really like the words good or bad because it's all about compromises. And again, it's, nothing is black and white. Um,
absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
I would try
Yeah, on that. You're right.
to step away from if if someone has an office and say, right, I think we need some changes here. I don't know where to start. Is kind of printing out a plan of a layout of the offices and trying to draw it as much as you can, as best as you can, and step away from it and look at it again with a critical point of view, like it's not your own space, and seeing what works and what doesn't. Is the lighting good? Is the layout working? Are the acoustics good enough? Is it? Do you have a lot of reverberation in the place?
Yeah.
When you have that echoey thing, then your brain isn't coping really well with all the sound. There's too many stresses coming. Basically, when I talked about neuroarchitecture, it's all about that primitive brain that we have.
Yeah.
Take the example of an open plan space again. If you think, okay, I work well in a open plan, I've got my headphones on, I'm focused, I don't see what the problem is. And that's fine, that's in your conscious brain. But somewhere at the back, your brain and primitive brain will be on alert because there's so many
Yeah.
noise,
Distractions.
so many
Yeah.
traffic around, people moving. If you've got a door behind you, you'll always tend to look back, trying to see someone behind me.
I know exactly what you mean.
You got
Yeah.
that
Absolutely.
feeling. So your brain is on alert 100% of the time whilst trying to focus on work. So how do you expect people to be efficient, creative, and feel well at the end of the day if you've got all that clutter in your brain going on in the background? It's impossible to be full at your full potential then. So that's where are the solution is really trying to step out of the layout, looking at it again and seeing how um, you can create zoning within the space, whether you add smaller wall units, like, I don't know, 1.4 meter high, for example, with storage, that kind of creates a little zone for somebody. They could personalize their space by adding few plants as well. Adding plants to it is a great way of personalizing a space. Adding some colors, whether it's maybe not the company colors, because it will depend what they do as well.
Yeah.
There is that. It's it's kind of how do you create a space that works for everyone and at the same time reflects the company and their values as well. So it's kind of a puzzling game to
Absolutely. We'll come on to colour in a minute. Okay, let's just
yes.
just dive into what you were saying there about your kind of brain being on high alert in the kind of open office
Mm.
environment. Are there any small things that you can do to change that, to calm the brain?
The first change would be to have a desk chair with a very high top. So I think you've
Okay.
got something similar like this. You've got a bit of a
Yeah.
top behind it, like
My back. So yeah.
as high as it can go and almost like enveloping, because that will kind of feel a bit of an enclosure and a bit of a protection. Basically, the brain is simple. It needs protection, light, so food. It's we need to go back to the basic and understand how the
Yeah.
brain works so that we can recreate that a safe environment. If your brain feels at rest, you can focus and be the best at what you
And
do.
how about which way you're facing? I.e., if you're looking outwards and seeing distraction, or actually if you're looking the other way and I don't know, you might be afraid that someone's going to creep up
Um,
behind you. How does that work?
the optimal position would be to have your face towards the door, so not your back to the door, because
Okay, I'm the wrong way around
yes,
in this room.
window, because I can see a window door, so you have your back to it. And,
I am, yeah.
and if you feel too much movement or even just a cat walking past, you'll feel it. You'll feel like something in your spine goes, oh, I need to turn around and see what's going on.
Okay.
and that distracts you from your main focus, which was work. And yeah, so that's the high alert. So ideally, you want to be facing the door, so you have control of the space.
Right. Okay.
And then the other thing is trying not to face a wall.
Right. Okay.
If you've heard that saying, I'm hitting a roadblock, or I'm facing a brick wall in the work.
Facing a brick wall. Yeah.
This is
Literally.
exactly that. This is that. So if you work facing a wall, you are physically having a block in your work. So ideally, if you can't move the desk and you are stuck with leaving it in front of a wall, and you've got a door behind you, little things that might have a huge impact on your brain and help you would be to have a small mirror by the side, so that you see what's going on behind you.
Oh, a little mirror.
Gives
Okay.
you that
It's
gives
a
you
personal session for my space almost. This.
yes, exactly. But it gives you that control of what's going on behind you.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
that kind of leaves your brains at rest in that sense. And if you are facing a wall, then it's to add some landscape images, nature, something with a perspective, so that you can trick your brain into seeing outdoors. So I wouldn't put anything that is a bit angry, or things like yapping at you, or goals that are too restrictive, or that you don't feel like you could always achieve, because that's another stress and a reminder. So it's something that calms your brain and gives you a perspective.
I'm
So,
writing notes.
yeah, writing notes.
Fantastic.
But if you can, move your desk and have something like this behind you, a wall or a unit with storage, then you've got control of your space, and that makes you feel in control of the conversation as well. Which is quite interesting for, we're talking about corporate and offices, but if in a setting of a psychologist or someone that does consultation, one-on-one consultation, the position of the consultant will be really important,
Oh,
and
okay.
the position of the patient will also be really important. So you want
Okay.
them to have the patient to be more the back to the door, so that they feel more vulnerable, and they will talk more about what the issue is. And then the
Okay. So
consultant is in
you could apply
control.
that if you were I don't know a a leader or manager just having a one-to-one conversation
That's it
with
as
your.
well, yes. But you see, the big corporate offices, then maybe the boss has their own office with the desk facing the door. They never have their back to the door. That's
Yeah.
the wall, and they're sitting like this, and they talk, and that's the position of control as well. So it's interesting to see how the space works for you in a way. So in some ways, you want it to be in a certain way, where you want the people to be vulnerable and the back against the door at the back, or the other way around. When
Oh
it comes,
yeah. So yeah, and I guess if you were trying to equal it out, you could flip that
that's right.
around and say, well, let's take my position out of it. I'll
That's
give
right.
them the
Yes, yeah.
seat of
It's how,
control of
as
it.
well, in a teamwork or team meeting room, for example, you also need to see who sits where as well. Round tables might probably be best if all are equal and trying to discuss something that matters. It's a great way of integrating the whole team as well into one level, and trying to make everyone feel at the same level, that they can bring something to the table.
It's probably one of the most emotive subjects out there for an office where people have their own space. I know a lot of people have
Yes, yeah.
flexible working spaces and things these days, but it's a really emotive subject
Mm,
with people thinking about the space. It's a bit
yes,
like
yeah.
I don't know. It's a bit like war. Most wars are about space, aren't they?
And that's back to, again, the neuroscience, but also the need for every human being to have their own territory. We buy
Yeah,
a land, we buy a house, even if we rent a flat, we want to make it our own. And then when you sit in a coffee shop, you've got like, oh, this is my spot. I like to sit there. I don't want to sit anywhere else. This is my spot. And it's the
yeah.
same in the office. You like to have your own spot, and it is quite important maybe to ask your employees where they feel best. and maybe change the seating arrangement and try to talk to them. It's like, do you feel like, if it's somebody that has maybe a lot of migraines at the end of the day, maybe we move them and make sure they've got a back behind them. Sorry, a wall behind the back. Yeah. So I've got to translate from French to English sometimes a lot in my brain, so I say the wrong words. Never
Okay,
mind.
we know
But
we're clear. Wall behind them. What other questions would would the office manager ask of the team to try and get the space right for everyone?
well, we can't do one solution that will suit everybody, because everyone has their own DNA, their own personality, their own brain waves, and their own connections. So it's really difficult to have, it's like not one diet works for all. It's the same in the interior design space and the architecture of it. You can't have one solution for everybody, because they might have some traumas in their past. So it's very much psychological as well. So
It's
how I would,
interesting that, because you've kind of split the things out there, because on one level there is a kind of status thing going on about space,
yes,
which might be a natural thing to fight for want of a better word, or have a discussion about in the office environment. And then there's almost needs, genuine human needs. How do you get it more onto the human needs? You mentioned one there, but
yes.
what are the kind of objective things to be talking about here?
So yeah, it's getting really trickier there, but I would start with the company and the boss, and how, or bosses or directors, depending how many there are, and going back to them first and see what are their primal needs, and then what are the company's principle. What do they do? If it is I don't know, give me an example of companies because if it is
A firm of lawyers.
so a firm of lawyers, well, there we go. Are they family lawyers? Is it finance? Is it international? Let's say it's family lawyer.
Yep.
Well, that family needs to be kind of reflected into the design as well. So it's almost a need of enveloping people, because they will have to deal with maybe divorce, or some things like that. So that
Yeah.
we need to think the space in that way. So it's really rethinking the space for which users. So it's very much a psychological game, and also a marketing game, and a way of trying to understand the team's needs as well. But I think just by talking with them and seeing how do they feel at home, how do they feel at work, just in the space, what would they like to see more of? Do they need time to relax? Do they have chronic stress, chronic migraines? Is any of them employees calling in sick more often? And trying to understand why and what's happening. I think it's kind of that approach of, it's just all about communication as well, not just about architecture.
Yeah, so I like it. So you're almost flipping it into kind of a well-being first
Yes, yes, yeah,
set of review.
yes, yeah. But I would look at the layout and see what are the negatives in this. So if there are too much open plan, yes, it's great. Yes, we need natural light, but we don't need always that much. And there are ways of bringing natural light in and at the same time closing off, but by partitioning
Yeah.
halfway or with louvers. So that brings natural light in, but it still gives those enclosing space so that people feel a bit more territorial about their own space as well. So that would be my number one thing. And that already will feel probably better for every team member, and they will feel good in their space. But meeting everyone's needs is really tricky. You might find like a color scheme maybe that is good for the whole company and meets the company values, etc. And within that color scheme, maybe let the employees and the team members um, personalize their own space with color blocking, maybe if they
Interesting.
like,
Yeah.
if it matches, and we don't have colors everywhere, because again, if you've got too many everywhere, it's too much stimuli for the brain. It's
Yeah,
a bit like a house that is cluttered, and when you walk in to the house and you can't open the door, there's too much stuff. It's the same in your brain when you've got too much stimulus, when you've got too much traffic around you, when you've got too many lights, the ventilation is not right, there's too much noise. It's the same. You can't enter into a zone and focus properly. It's too cluttered in there.
yeah.
So, yeah.
And how about you talk there about color blocking? Um, let's talk the psychology of color. I think it's one of the areas that you focus on quite a bit, and the kind of influence um, that has. So,
Yes.
if you were decorating your office or indeed your home office space, because a lot of people are
Yeah.
increasingly
Office. Yeah. Well,
working from home or hybrid working these days.
I think that's kind of a separate kind of bubble for home office, because then I would go more into what that individual needs. So what does that team member needs in their personal life as well, and as well as work,
Yeah,
and see what colors they might need. But yes, we have colors and symbolism, and of course it depends again on your culture as well. Your cultural backgrounds might have
right.
different relationship to colors. Um, for example, blue. If you have royal blue, it means a lot in Britain to be that color. For
Yeah,
some culture, black will be, for us, it will be the morning color. But for some others, it's the light. And so it really depends again. See, you need to check where the culture is.
yeah,
But in general, if I speak just for Europeans and Britain, I would say like a grey color and a dark and a black color will give a feeling of oppression and depression. Think of
yeah,
it as a heavy cloud when it's about to rain. And it's raining today, and we've mentioned it before we started this video. It's when it's grey, you feel down. It's a bit, oh, it's a gloomy day. It's not great. Don't feel like having, you just want that sunshine outside. It's the same
yeah.
inside as well. So I would avoid grey
So yeah,
and
we can be quite a grey country. So what would you
yeah.
which colour palette would you steer people towards
Ah,
to open things up to counter that?
well, again, it's really a tricky question. If I can't really steer people towards one color
Of course,
or another,
yeah,
and I would say that the best is not to follow any trends, to maybe avoid grey in your house and everything that is, if it's too greyish, beige, all too monochrome, it's not creative enough. It doesn't bring much joy.
yeah,
It's all a bit blunt. It's almost a mimic of all the beige food that we could eat at some point. It's not varied.
yeah,
Uh, I would just bring a touch of color, even with a painting. Um, I would avoid maybe the colors I would avoid in an office would be red and oranges. Maybe the colors that are too stimulant, so a
yeah,
bit on the aggressive side. But
yeah.
again,
Because they're used in fast food places a lot, aren't they? To get
that's
people to
it.
eat quickly, move on.
That's for a perfect example of neuroarchitecture. It is made to it is designed so that people don't stay. The chairs are uncomfortable, there's too many colors. It's all about movement, get them out as quickly as you can. Yeah, and orange would be it is a good color. For example, EasyJet is the movement, you've got that
Yeah,
branding. It's the orange. Let's
action.
get them out
Yeah,
quickly. As quickly as you can. So it's maybe not the best color for settling in and working peacefully. The greens would be more a color for family, and so if it's a family company, that would be an ideal color. But it's also peaceful and brings a bit of wood of that softness as well. Again, it's really depending on the company which color you're gonna have, and in your home office will be the same. Depends on your
yeah.
individuality. I'll get there.
Of course, but I guess yeah. I mean, avoiding those kind of beiges, grey, dark, oppressive colours, and
Yes, yeah. Especially
going.
ceilings. If you see sometimes a black ceiling, definitely avoid it. Literally, your brain sees it as something that is going to fall on you. Basically, the brain is simple. If you see a picture or a color, the brain doesn't do the difference between an image and reality. So if you see a landscape, your brain sees it as an outdoor space that you could go to. Consciously, you know it's a picture. And it's
Yeah.
the same with colors. If you've got a very heavy color on the ceiling, consciously you think it's just paint. I love it. It's nice. But unconsciously, your brain will think, well, that's like a massive cloud over my head. It's very oppressing and not the
Absolutely.
best to be at your best and full potential.
But yeah, and I love your idea of, if it allows, then to have some scope of personalization within a space. So
Yeah, yeah.
not many people would think about that in an office,
Mm.
would they? Now,
You could also just put a little name tag as well on the desk and saying, sometimes you do co-working and sharing offices more and more, as in hybrid working and flexible working. So it could be just simple as a little name tag and say, right, today this is me sitting and this is my desk for the day or for the half day.
I'll just to sort of stamp your ownership.
This is mine. Putting my name up.
Yeah, or sometimes I think things that can help people communicate. So in a co-working kind of open space, it
Mm,
often helps to have something, I think, that is almost, that says you can disturb me or you can't, and it's
yeah.
kind of, it's then known that I've got my, A sign up, that means I'm
Yes, yeah.
focusing in attention, or
Yes.
I've got
Yeah.
my
Do not ask me 10 questions in the next
open sign up, and
20 minutes.
I'm actually open to have a chat.
Yes,
I'm
yeah.
very to go.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea, actually.
It's almost like the alternative of a door. It's your
Yes.
door open or your
Yeah.
door closed. So we touched on there, people at home. You mentioned it quite early on. I think you were talking about, actually, for some it's very difficult to delineate, isn't it, between working and home.
Yeah.
They might use the kitchen table or
Yeah.
stuff,
And
and
it's
a lot of
rare.
people had
Yes.
challenges through COVID
Yeah.
with this.
Yes, that's a
How
big.
would you advise people to sort of manage space if they
Um,
can? Obviously, people have restrictions.
yes, yeah. Well, let's talk of the lucky ones that have like an office pod in the garden. That's ideal solution is to have that really. You've got that separation between your house and your
Yep.
office. So that's the ideal situation. And then it's kind of, if you've got that, is again thinking of it more, this is my work, and have a more of a work setup and a layout and colors that you like, etc. When COVID hit, we had no choice but to work from home. um, so some have set up office or desk in their bedroom, in the lounge, in the dining room, kitchen, you name it. um, and that is really tricky how to balance things out. Let's start with the bedroom, for example. You've got a
Yep.
desk in your bedroom. Um, and here we start talking about hormones a little bit more as well. And that's quite interesting to understand is if you are at your desk in your bedroom and you can see your bed, your brain will and your body will start producing sleep hormones because you see your bed. And
Okay.
um, and the other way around happens. When you're lying in bed and you can see your desk, your body will create hormones or will create thoughts that are work related. So it might not be easy for you to go to sleep. You will start thinking and thinking too much about work stuff because subconsciously your desk is still there.
Oh, really
So
interesting.
it's really, and that's a bit tricky because again it depends on how the layout of the bedroom works, and sometimes we have no choice. But finding a way to turn the desk away so that you don't see your bed would be a better start of not feeling like, "Ugh, I'm sleepy halfway through the day and
Okay, so you're
all I want
definitely
to do is have
facing
a
away
nap."
from the bed if you can. So you don't
Yes,
do
yeah.
that.
But yeah, and vice versa. When you're in bed, you shouldn't be able to see your desk, which is again tricky.
Tricky. Yeah, I'm thinking of my I'm thinking of my daughter's bedrooms as we
Yeah, it's
speak,
tricky
and how
with children as well.
how
And
how they're
when we
how they're
think
set
about
up.
it, we've got, in Britain, houses are in general a bit smaller, so we tend to have a kid's desk under the bed sometimes, or it's just often facing a wall as well. And it's not ideal because it's that really trickiness between sleep and work. and you don't want to disturb that, especially in children. It's really important to keep their hormones level right.
Right.
And having them waking up at 3 a.m. with starting thinking too much about stuff, and it's not great for their development. So it's almost better if they do their homework at the dining table, because it separates it. It
Okay.
does separate the sleep from, and then maybe keep the desk for art and craft and playing and reading. And that way it's kind of staying with that relaxing bubble that the bedroom should be.
Okay.
Which is the
Yeah.
restful, the place where you go and hide from the rest of the world. Ideally, we don't really want to work from the bedroom at all. So that's the ideal.
I guess there are practical solutions as well. Like, I don't know whether you could have a curtain or
You can have a curtain. That's an easy one to
a
set
kind of
up.
bureau or a piece of
Yes,
furniture that hides the desk away, so it
that's right.
does
Yeah.
seem like a desk, something like that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, really? I hadn't thought of that perspective. So really,
Mm,
really
yes.
interesting share. You were going to tell us about some of the other spaces in the home.
What did I mention again? Yes, the dining room or open plan, especially if you've had like a renovation and an extension done. We see a lot of open plan kitchen, dining, lounge.
Yeah,
So everything is mixed up. But if you add again a desk into that, that's another function to the room where you might be working fine, but especially if you're a mum like me of two, or a dad, probably see it more as a mum, but you start seeing the clutter in the kitchen and your brain goes, oh, I need to do that washing. Everything, oh, the toys are there. And it's too much again to think about. It's too many stimulus for your brain. Ideally, again, it is trying to zone that desk so that we don't see that space and that you can create almost its own bubble. Maybe that solution would be to be facing a wall, but with a nice wallpaper that gives like a perspective so that you've got the back as well. It's not the ideal, but we're trying to find a solution. Again, nothing is perfect. You don't have white to
yeah.
black
That's
solutions.
that's where you come in, isn't it? Because you could have
That's
slides
it.
and stuff in
It's
space.
trying your best with what you've got,
Yeah,
and seeing as well how that person feels in the space, and they might just be happy to take a laptop and sit at a dining table, and they might have to do an hour of tidying up before they can actually sit down and focus on work, and that's okay. And it's almost kind of part of the flexible working situation, is that maybe we should understand that my employee or my team member needs that 1 hour or half an hour of decluttering and tidying up before they can actually be efficient. Because what's the point of sitting 8 hours in front of a screen trying to be efficient when that person has so many things happening in their minds if they can't be well in the
yeah. No,
space?
exactly what you
Then
mean. That's
might as
really
well
good.
give them an hour. Say, right, start at 10 today so that you can clean your house. But then I know that from 10 to 1, you're efficient. Rather than 9 to 1, you're a bit here and there and you're not quite there. So,
Yeah, and I think that's where building trust comes in, isn't it? Because
yes,
the
yes,
idea of being at home is you might have some compromises in the space, but you should
yes,
have some flexibility as well. As
yes,
much
yeah.
as the business can allow in
But
certain
that's my personal view on employment in general. Just feel like we have to sit at a desk and be present in front of a screen 7 to 8 hours a day to have a paycheck at the end of the month. But that doesn't mean that the person is efficient. We need to be able, we're human beings. We need to be able to feel good. We need to be able to move our body in the space. Because if your body doesn't move, the body doesn't think.
Yeah.
So we need to be able to you need to be able to go out for a walk for 20 minutes, come back, and it shouldn't be taken out of your salary at the end of the month, because actually that declutters your mind and you come back more refreshed. So it's kind of mobility as well. But that's another field, and that's not quite my area of expertise. It's
No, but
just my
I think there's certainly a cultural shift from
Mm,
kind of managing people by tickets and clocking in or being in the office
yeah,
at a
yeah.
certain time, and actually moving on to kind of trusting them and
Yes, yeah,
empowering them. More result output driven rather than okay, were you
yeah, yeah.
in front of your
But for
computer?
home office, if I mean the main thing would be to find yourself a space where you can really be in your own bubble and not seeing anything. And if you see everything else in your house, then it's to first of all declutter and organize and turn the layout so maybe you don't see your sofa, so you don't produce hormones of
Oh, the
relaxation.
same thing happens on your sofa. Okay. Yeah.
So it's trying to find the right balance. And also, once you've acknowledged that, okay, I know that there is something there, and we'll try and find a way to block it out. Even if I have to put like a huge, I don't know, open folder on the
Yeah.
side, so that
Divide.
visually
Yeah.
you can't see
Mobile
it.
room divide. Yeah.
And if your brain can't see it, it's not there. So that's fine. Your conscious brain might still think, yeah, I know there is that washing to do, but at least I'm focusing on work and I can't
Hide
see
it
anything.
away. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's another thing
Right.
on my to-do list.
Not
Just have a
the issue at the end of the day.
bit of a tidy up on this desk. Just a bit you can't see. But
So yes, it's applying, tidy house, tidy mind. It's the same for your office.
and how about I think is it biophilic design principles? Have I said that right?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Tell us about those.
So, and also, what is biophilic design as well?
Please. Yeah, that's a great start.
Yeah. So basically, just human is connected to nature and always been. So we've man-made everything. We've man-made buildings. We've man-made shelters. We've man-made concrete materials, products. So we're going back with a biophilic design. We're going back with the mindset of bringing nature back in, to create like an intuitive and primitive instinct almost, and to be as feeling as safe as you can in an environment. But I would look first at the nature of the space
Okay.
before bringing nature into the space. So that is really
Okay.
important.
So what do you mean by the nature of the space? Just to be clear.
The nature of the space, well, is it are we talking about a museum, a corporate office,
Okay.
an open plan,
Yeah.
a small office? Are we talking about a hospital,
Yeah.
a care home? So that is the nature of the space. So we need to analyze this one first. Then we start thinking, how do we bring nature in, or nature analogs into the space, which could be like a wallpaper with lots of greenery on it, or trees, or something that is quite uplifting. And it's kind of to a way of reconnecting and rewiring the brain and sending the good signal to the brain of feeling better, because it's been proved that natural light and nature brings a sense of peacefulness, or de-stress people.
Yeah. So I guess you could. Yeah. I
Yes,
mean, you mentioned hospitals there in that list.
yes,
It's like
yeah. And most hospital are just white and cold. That's how I see it. Grey, white is just very. There's a lack of personality, and it's just very cold, and
absolutely.
nobody
I
wants to
was
be in there.
I was in one the other day, walking along, and at the top of the corridor, on the top of it, was a big sign saying "corridor"
Oh, wow! If you didn't know where you were.
in red. And that's kind of probably the epitome of what not to do.
Yes, yeah, yeah. But it's biophilic design would be as well, just learning how to put the nature back in with natural lights. It's very simple, but also have like a good ventilation system, without having the vents above somebody's head. That would be kind of
Yeah,
counterproductive, of what we were trying to achieve. It's
absolutely. Yeah, we get some
the right
natural air in. Yeah, I
temperature.
guess.
Yes, yeah. So it's kind of a mix. It kind of blends in really nicely with the neuroarchitecture of biophilic design. Yeah.
Nice, excellent. And in terms of, I'm all for sustainability. It's slightly off topic
Yes.
in
Yep.
terms of impacting. But what are the obviously if people are redesigning their space, taking on board some of the principles that you've mentioned today, or indeed if they need to do it professionally, calling you up and, and inviting you to their space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but what are the small things that people can do to be a bit more sustainable about their space?
Well, using products that last, so desks and chairs that will last longer than something that will break a leg after 2 years. So sometimes it might cost a bit more to have a better design, but it will last longer, and also the right design. So that needs to be thought through first. Using materials that could be recycled easily.
Yeah.
And in terms of paint, it's to go for the very low VOC, which is the volatile. I forgot now the words, but it's all
Yeah.
the particles that goes into the space. So that has also a better impact on the environment when it comes to recycling the can of paints, for example,
Right.
so
Okay.
things like tubs and things. So there are some big brand companies which also will take the leftover paint and recycle the pots and recycle even the paint. But anything water-based and low VOC would be the best
Great.
in terms of sustainability for
Yeah.
the interiors. And also you don't
Good.
have all these fumes as well going on. It's not too great for a home or an office environment, especially hospitals as well. That would be the best, is to go for low VOC. Sustainable materials. But again, I think that's not my area of expertise. But I would always try to get people to reuse as much as they can, or get things secondhand with a good clean. And upcycling something could have a great impact as well on personalizing something.
Yeah,
Let's say,
particularly for offices, there is
yeah,
because of the churn of office space and people are moving around. It's not
yeah,
difficult
yeah,
to source sustainable
yes,
or
yeah,
upcycled office
yeah.
furniture.
But yeah, I think that's where my kind of area of expertise ends. Is like, yes, just reuse as much as you can, design that lasts instead of that. It's better to have one quality item than quantity. And yeah, it kind of, I would we see a lot of fast fashion, and everything goes, we
Yes.
change fashion all the time. Oh, this is the color on trend. Oh, this is the sofa on trend. So don't follow the trends. Follow something that has value and that will last for years. Because if you see a building that is over hundreds years old, it has that, it sticks there. It's timeless. So we want to find furniture and create a timeless space that you feel good in, and that it's easy to that the user can easily reappropriate to themselves if there's
Yeah.
a change in company.
I
So
think that's the point, isn't it? It's
yeah,
about designing the space to your feelings
yes,
in
yeah,
addition to all of the practical stuff that you
that's things. Yeah, I
have
said
to
it's a puzzle.
consider.
It is a big puzzle.
Yeah, well, okay, I can see why people would need need experts like you, Veronique. Thank,
I hope
thank,
so. Yes.
thank you so much
My pleasure.
for
Yes,
joining.
yeah,
I know I've
that's good.
learned loads, and that's just me. But before you go, have you got a book recommendation for
So I got a book. Yes, if you look at Inquiry by Design,
Worry by Design?
that'd be really a good one. That kind of, it's might be more for, I don't know if it's more for architects or designers specifically, but it kind of explains the neuroscience and the architecture, kind of blended it together. And that's, I think, if everyone knew a little bit more about neuroscience in every single in their own fields, it will open a lot of doors. It certainly did open a lot of doors in my mind in terms of architecture and how I design the space now. And I look back at some projects and think I've made some mistakes before, and now I'm not going to do them again. But I think
Yeah,
this
no,
book is
I love
probably
that. Yeah,
the
'cause
one to look at first.
yeah. Thank you
Yes,
for that recommendation. Yeah, because we're all human after all, aren't we? And
yes,
I
yeah, with our very own specific needs and very own different brain wiring. So again, it's all about uh, finding the right solution for the right person, or the right team, or the right company, and
absolutely,
putting all the pieces back together and create a beautiful picture.
I'm totally attuned to that. Thank you
Good.
so much for joining us. Uh,
Well, thank you for the time, and thank you for having me.
my pleasure. Thank